Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning. And today we've got another combination that I'm really excited to see how it can perform, because if there's a choke that's going to really bring these shells out, I definitely kind of think that this is the choke that's going to do it. We've already seen a very solid performance from the shells, but I still think we can tune them in a little bit better, and hopefully this is the setup that's really going to be able to do that fine tuning. But as for the shells we've got out here today, it's some that Joseph sent in, so big thank you to him for sending some of these in. But we've brought out some of the Viper ammunition 410 shells. They are a 410 2.5 inch 11/16 ounce payload of number 9.5 TSS shot, moving about 1135 feet per second. And for only being a little tiny 2.5 inch shell, these gave us a very solid pattern the last time we tested them. So far they seem to be a pretty decent option for a 2.5 inch shell. But how are they actually going to perform through today's setup, or more so today's choke, based on the constriction? And as for today's setup, I brought out the Mossberg 500 410 turkey here with this choke. This is the Carlson's heavyweight TSS turkey choke, which is a 385 constriction. And last time we tested these Viper 2.5 inch shells, we ran them through the stock choke for this Mossberg, which is roughly 380 constriction. And with these being 9.5 shot, the smaller shot has tended to like more constriction. But on the flip side of that, this Carlson's 385 has been an extremely reliable choke across the board, regardless of shot size. So maybe this is the perfect combination for these shells. We're just going to have to test it and see what happens. But as for the test today, everything is the same as usual. The turkey paper set up at 40 yards. I've also got the chronograph so we can get our velocity out of them. So we'll get you guys set up with a view of the target, take the shot, look at the chrono, and then go down and look at the results. I definitely have some high hopes for this combination. I think it's just going to come down to how well do the Viper 9.5 shot perform through a 385 constriction choke, and do they prefer the little bit tighter constrictions like other 9.5 and 10 shot that we've tried. So let's go over here and test it and just see what kind of a pattern it's actually able to give us. Okay, so that shell gave us 1,084 through the chrono. The box does claim 1135, so we are a little bit under it. But I want to say the last time we tested these, they were right at that 1,100 feet per second mark, so they at least seem to be consistent. I might prefer to see a little bit higher velocity, mid 1100s or so, but still, if they patterned well at 1,084, then you're still going to be just fine. But how did they actually pattern through that Carlson's 385? Let's go check it out and see what we got. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. And I gotta say, that's rather interesting. This pattern is not even in the same ballpark as what we had seen previously out of these shells through that stock 380 choke in that Mossberg. It is completely a different story here, and really not a pattern that I'm a fan of, to be honest with you. Now, is it good enough to get you a turkey with out to 40 yards? Yes, it is. I mean, as you can see, we were a touch off to the right here, but we did still get us a turkey. There is one through the very top edge of the brain and one more through the spine down there. So we would have gotten the bird, and it would have looked a little bit better if we centered that pattern up just a little bit. But still, as you can see here, there's definitely no defined core area. It's just a broad swath of shot kind of all over this top right corner of this paper down here. There's a ton of big voids in it all around the edges here that are at least fist size, which I definitely do not like to see. I mean, there's a big one right in front of his beak right there. And outside of that, we definitely have some flyers. There's some up there in the top left. There's several all the way down there at the very bottom of the paper. It's just a not very pretty looking turkey pattern. Now, if you wanted to use this as a youth load, I think it would work out pretty decently for a combination to do that with. If you're going to be hunting birds at 15, 20, 25 yards, but still might have to take the odd 30 to 35 yard shot, this kind of a pattern would give that youth hunter or that new hunter a little bit more leeway to work with. But as for me, it's just too broad and a little bit too splotchy for my taste. It's not the worst pattern we've seen for a 410 shell. It's still good enough to get you the bird, but I was definitely hoping for better out of a Viper shell. I think this just comes down to 9.5 shot being a little bit smaller, going through a 385 choke. I think think the smaller shot just really likes the tighter chokes, because we had definitely seen a much better pattern through that tighter stock choke in this Mossberg. So at the end of the day, a little bit disappointing, but this is only the second shell we've shot of these. So I think we still need to do some more testing with them through some other chokes to see what happens. But definitely a little bit less impressive than what I was hoping for, and not really a pattern that I would kind of want to use for my turkey hunting setup. Okay, and here's the wad from that shell, and as you can see, it is actually one of the big 2-petal style instead of the more normal or more common 3-petal, which was rather surprising the first time we shot these shells. But as for this one, it is a little bit banged up around the edges, which is kind of what we saw in the first one as well. But if you can see down in the center there, there is one pellet stuck down in the bottom, which has been a very common occurrence recently with 410 for whatever reason. Even though it is one pellet, and I don't think one pellet would have made the difference in this pattern, I really don't like to see pellets stuck down in the bottom of these wads. So 410 just seems to be really susceptible to doing that. But the wad is definitely a little banged up. It is a little bit twisted, a little bit uneven, which could have had a little bit to do with pattern we saw, but it didn't go through a ported choke or anything like that. So I don't know. I just think the smaller shot size needs kind of every bit of constriction they can get to really help them out some. So I don't think the wad is too much of a culprit today, but I would like to see no pellets stuck down in the bottom there, if anything else. All right, y'all. Well, what did you think about that pattern right there? Is it good enough to take out to 35 to 40 yards? Yes, it would still get you the turkey, but that's really not the kind of pattern that I would want to push much past 30 yards, personally. For a youth shell or something like that, that would still be a very solid option if you're hunting in at, 15, 20, 25 yards, and you might have to take the 30-yard shot or 35-yard shot once in a blue moon. That would be just fine for you. But as for me, I want to see it constricted down a little bit tighter than that. And I think it just comes down to the little bit more open choke constriction, and these being 9.5s. Like I've already said, the smaller shot sizes just seem to want more constriction in my testing. But I still think we need to put these through a bunch of different chokes to see what happens with them and truly get an idea of if it's just this particular shell or choke combo that doesn't work, or if it actually does like a little bit tighter constrictions. Either way, let me know your thoughts about it in the comments. Is it about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these Viper 2.5-inch shells? And if so, what kind of results have you seen out of them? Would you hunt with a pattern like that? Or are you like me and kind of want that condensed down a little bit tighter than that? Let me know all that down below. But as for this pattern, it's not the worst we've seen by a long shot from a 410, but it is a little bit disappointing for a Viper shell and what I was hoping to get out of it. But that's the way it goes sometimes, and that's why we test different combinations to see what works and what doesn't. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.